Ruthless Compassion is a podcast about how you can turn your emotional shit into fertilizer for success and see your darkest moments as opportunities to transform into a powerful kindness warrior. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave a review wherever you listen. Hi, I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota, and today I want to talk about the 6 stages of moving from what seems like a perfect love to disillusionment. And it came to mind because I was paying attention a little bit to the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say that that relationship seems fairly dysfunctional. You know, they've aired all their very personal details about their relationship for everyone to hear. So I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I comment in that way. But thinking about that relationship, it got me really considering how a lot of people, not just the two of them, get into these relationships where it starts out with everything seemingly perfect and then it fairly quickly devolves into something quite toxic. And when we look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, he was so crazy about her, it seemed, at the start. And it seems like his friends and even his daughter, other family members were telling him not to marry her. And he was ignoring them because he was so caught up in this rapturous love toward her. And then obviously it soured very badly fairly quickly. So I want to go through the 6 stages of going from what seems like a perfect love to deep disillusionment and real toxicity. So I'm going to grab my paper where I have my list. So the first stage is infatuation. Now, infatuation is different from love, because love is something that is much more of a slow burn. It grows slowly, it builds slowly, and it comes out of real intimacy, which is truly seeing one another and connecting on a deep level with one another, getting to know each other very slowly through the holidays, through the anniversaries, through the seasons, through all the different birthdays and festivals and all the different milestones that we have. And that's true love. That's real intimacy-based connection. And that doesn't happen at the beginning. You can grow into love, but when people fall quickly into love, it's much more commonly infatuation, which is this very hot, very fast attraction. It's like an instant attraction. And that's usually based on something psychological, like the person reminds us on an unconscious level of someone from our past, like a parent or a guardian. And there's usually a level of dysfunction in that infatuation, in that the person who we are being reminded of is not necessarily a positive figure. And the infatuation comes because there's an unconscious desire to resolve some kind of deep wound associated with this person. And so we are infatuated with them because we are compelled to sort out this wound. And so we are drawn to them very strongly, not out of true love and intimacy, but out of this deep desire, which is completely unconscious, to work through some trauma from the past. So infatuation has very little to do with real love because it's driven by a wound, where true love is driven by knowledge and understanding and a real sense of connectedness based on shared values, shared interests, and just enjoying being in the presence of the other person. So stage 1 from moving from what seems like perfect love to disillusionment starts with infatuation, which is not anything to do with real love. Stage 2 is obsession. So infatuation, because it's not coming from a place of real love, and because it's coming from a place of needing to resolve something unconsciously, it can quickly go into obsession, which means that the person becomes completely focused on their partner and don't think about or want to do anything with anyone else. They want to spend all their time with this person. They want to do everything with this person, and they are obsessed with everything about this person. In fact, it can even go into obsessive jealousy and paranoia, where they're thinking about who their partner might be seeing or spending time with or talking to, and they can become very irrational in their jealousy because they're so obsessed with this person that they're infatuated with that they become irrationally angry that they're having anything to do with anyone else. So that's the stage of obsession. And again, obsession has nothing to do with real love. So once we're having what we think is a perfect love, but it's intense and hot and fast, and it goes quickly into obsession, that's something that's leading toward a very bad outcome. Stage 3 is denial. So the person is infatuated, they're obsessed, but they're also in denial of anything about their partner that might be wrong. So their friends or family member might be saying, I think your partner was bad-mouthing you to somebody else the other day, or your partner bad-mouthed you to me the other day. And the person in infatuation will say, you're lying, you're just telling me this because you're jealous of our happiness, or you're trying to undermine our relationship for some reason of your own. So they won't believe even the truth. And someone that they really usually respects will come up to them and say, I think your partner is not trustworthy. I think they're stealing money from you. I think they're trying to manipulate you. The person who's got this infatuation, which they believe is love, but is really not love, will be in total denial, won't want to hear it. And even things that they witness themselves, they will minimize, they will justify, they will explain to themselves, or they will believe the very flimsy explanation or excuse of their partner because they don't want to know the truth. They want to maintain that powerful infatuation because it's like a drug. That kind of powerful, intense, hot, instant infatuation, which people mistake for love. It feels incredibly euphoric. You're high, you're on a cloud, and you feel just on top of the world. You feel so amazing, but it's not love because love is not that hot. It doesn't burn like the sun. It's more of a warmth. It's more of a gentle, delightful, pleasant experience, not a hot, intense experience. So this infatuation is so intoxicating and it's so addictive that the person will deny the truth in order to maintain that state of euphoria. So stage 4 is when the illusion starts trembling or wavering, and there are inklings of disappointment. Even with the intensity of the infatuation and the obsession and the denial of the truth, at some point, it's really hard to ignore some very obvious signs that are even hitting us over the head. And so there are inklings of disappointment. We experience something that makes us feel not so good. Our partner does something that disappoints us, that lets us down, that makes us feel upset or unhappy or frustrated or angry. And we start to wonder, I thought this person was perfect. I thought our love was perfect. I thought this was the ideal relationship. What gives? And so these inklings are just beginning, but the person is still enjoying that euphoria of infatuation, that powerful addictive obsession, and quite a lot of denial. So those inklings of disappointment are just the beginning of that facade, that illusion starting to crumble. But they're beginning, and it's sort of the beginning of the end. So the next stage is disillusionment, where despite the hot infatuation, the obsession, and the denial, those inklings of disappointment have turned into disillusionment, and then the person is really feeling disappointed with their partner. They're feeling hurt. They're feeling even betrayed because they thought that this person was perfect. They thought this was their ideal mate, the love of their life, their soulmate, the one and only, the ride and die forever. And all of a sudden the cracks have shown in the facade and there's something ugly in between. So now the person looking at their partner is getting angry, is getting upset, is getting deeply hurt because they had such a big illusion going that when the illusion breaks, they are disillusioned. And then finally, the last stage, stage 6, is the rupture. And the rupture is usually explosive because when we start with this hot infatuation, and then we go into this intense obsession, and then we are supported by this powerful denial, and then the inklings of disappointment come, leading to a deep, profound sense of disillusionment and betrayal, then the next experience is an explosion. And it can be an internal explosion where the person has some kind of an emotional breakdown, or it can be an explosion in the relationship where the couple is very abusive toward one another, either emotionally or verbally or even physically, or they can do things like sue each other in court. They can do parental alienation. They can kidnap the children to another country. They can sue the other person. They can do all sorts of really nasty things. And when you hear about ugly divorces, most likely there could have been some intense infatuation, obsession, denial, inklings of disappointment, disillusionment, and then explosion at the end where it leads to some awful, awful court case or awful, awful demands on the part of the hurt other partner. So it's really a dangerous thing to do, to start into a relationship, to enter into any kind of romance with infatuation. Because, like I said, it's not coming from a place of love, it's coming from some kind of psychological issues that need to be resolved. So when we are trying to work through our psychological wounds, through our relationships, that's not the way to have a relationship. We should be in relationships for the sake of the relationship, not for the sake of unconscious resolution of our trauma. So when we start with infatuation, we're actually not starting with intimacy and building the love slowly and gradually, which is the way it's supposed to go. We are getting started hot and heavy, intense, and there's no intimacy there. There's just projections of something onto one another. So projections of this idealized version of the person, this perfect version of the person. So it seems like a perfect love, but really it's just a perfect facade. And then it quickly moves into obsession, then denial, and then the inklings of disappointment, the disillusionment, and then the rupture, the explosion. We don't want to get into relationships starting with infatuation. We want to get into relationships starting with building connection, building intimacy, slowly getting to know one another, slowly building trust and understanding and support. And in that way, we're going to avoid the kind of explosive rupture that we saw in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial just recently, where it doesn't seem like either party came out very well. Even though Johnny Depp ostensibly won, there are still a lot of people who don't feel comfortable with who he is as a person. And I don't think either of their reputations benefited from this. So all of this could have been avoided if they had been forewarned that when they feel a sense of powerful infatuation, that's not a sign to get together. That's actually a sign to walk away. This is Dr. Marcia Sirota. Thank you for listening. Please leave a review and your comments wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to sign up for my free newsletter at marciasirotamd.com, where you'll learn about upcoming online events as well. Also, we love getting referrals from our listeners about future podcast guests. So please email us at info@marciasirotamd.com.